Everybody, and good morning. It is Wednesday, January 18th, and we are here for my Intro Psych week number 2 Twitch live stream. I hope everyone can hear me and see me okay. If someone could let me know in the chat if you can hear and see me just fine, that would be fantastic. I see a lot of you getting logged in, putting your first and last names in the chat, all perfect things. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for all of you who are here with me live. I love it. It's so nice to be able to interact with some of you. Great. Everything sounds good. You can see me. That's fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. So this should be a little bit shorter than last week. Last week we were going through, kind of everything to make sure you're feeling organized and good and understand where everything is. My goal for this week and typically what will happen is I want to go over some reminders, the things that are due for this week for week number 2. I especially want to focus today on exam number 1 and make sure you know where to take that, how to be successful, and share some tips and strategies for that. I will, of course, give you your extra credit question. Remember that by joining me live and putting your name in the chat, you can then also answer the extra credit question I give you on Canvas to get those 2 points. And you can do this every week, which will definitely add up. If you're watching this later, just make sure you are subscribed to my Twitch channel and you can still get that credit for answering the extra credit question. And then I'll end it with seeing if you have any questions for me and some reminders. So that will be our plan for today, probably about 30 minutes or so. And if you have questions or anything at any point, please put it in the chat. That is your best way to interact with me. And we have a couple of people joining us, it looks like, for the first time. So welcome. This is Twitch, and I'm your instructor, Elisa Setmire, if this is your first time joining. So let's go ahead and head over to Canvas together. And again, if you have questions at any point, please feel free to put them in the chat. So we are kind of halfway through our first 2 weeks of the class, maybe a little bit more at this point as we're on Wednesday, but we are right here in week number 2. And remember that weeks 1 and 2 are open for you until this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So if you haven't done week number 1 yet, that's totally fine. You still have all the way till this Sunday night, and there might be some of you who have done everything for weeks 1 and 2. Definitely nice to have that flexibility. So we went over everything from week 1 last week, but just as a quick reminder, remember that week number 1 was chapters 1 and 2, discussions 1 and 2, and then there's that optional extra credit from last week. So what we'll focus on this week is the stuff for week number 2, since we're in the second week. So this week we're looking at chapters 3 and 4, which relate to biological psychology and sensation and perception. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you have read chapters 3 and 4 in the ebook. And remember that the ebook website, you can find those chapters up here at the top where it says chapters. And so you'll click on that, and then you can read through chapter 3 and chapter 4 in the book. Make sure you click on any links and explore everything that I have in there. Of course, that's all going to be really helpful for you. And then you're also going to want to look through and read through the lecture and watch the lecture video. And I know there's a little bit of overlap, but that is intentional. My hope with that is that it will help you to retain and remember the information. So when you're looking at these lectures, for example, if you click on chapter 3 lecture, remember that every lecture has this kind of 5-tab format, the first page being objectives and summary, and so you can read through that or you can listen to it if you miss the sound of my voice. The second page beyond the book, so I have a couple of things in this one about the types of neurons, action potentials and neurotransmitters, a little bit about the 10% myth of the brain, which will be helpful for your discussion. Again, if I put a video in here, watch it. If I put something in here, click on it, explore it. Everything in here is going to help you to understand that content. In pop culture, a little bit here, there was a scene in The Walking Dead seasons ago about neurons, which I got really excited about and put in here. A little animation from the Animaniacs about the brain, a little bit about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, and how that related to mirror neurons and motor neurons, some key terms in review, all the terms you need to know from chapter 3 for the exam. And then finally on the last page, a little bit about application, understanding spinal cord injury, the importance of experiences, and so on. So always read through everything and click through all that. You're also going to want to watch the lecture video for Chapter 3. And remember, these are usually going to either be a YouTube video or a Zoom link. This one's a YouTube video, so you want to watch this and take notes. This is me lecturing on the content to help you with understanding. And then you'll do the same thing for Chapter 4, right? So Chapter 4, make sure you read the ebook chapter. Again, Chapter 4 right here on the ebook website. And then you'll want to go through the lecture for Chapter 4. Same format, same style. Objectives and summary on the first page. Beyond the book on the second. A little bit about subliminal messages and subliminal perception. I had a little virtual tour of the eye. Some fun stuff about color after images and stereograms. So hopefully this stuff, you find it interesting and helpful and fun. There's some in pop culture stuff. I have a little video here about rods and cones from Blue Man Group. A little ESP video from Ghostbusters. The next page is key terms and review. All the terms you need to know from Chapter 4. And then the last page will be application. A little bit about smell and memory and illusions. The smell memory thing will be very helpful for your discussion this week. So as always, as you're kind of settling into your routine for the class, make sure that you read the chapter in the ebook. That's 1. 2, read through the lecture video. And then 3, watch my lecture where I'm lecturing to the content and the PowerPoint slides. So you want to do that for each of the chapters. As usual, you'll also have 2 discussions this week. So discussion number 3 is connected to Chapter 3. And so this one is going to be all about neurons and the brain and the 10% myth of the brain. So as usual, I've given you a little introductions video. You're always going to want to watch these. Some of them are a couple of years old. Again, my hair is much longer now. But you'll watch the little video and then make sure that you respond and answer my questions. Think about them as little mini papers. Answer fully, give me full detail. After these first 2 weeks have passed and I grade all of these materials, next week what I will be doing is giving you some feedback. And you will get a grade and discussion feedback, but I'll talk a little bit about some things that I saw once these have been graded. But think about them as little mini papers, answer things fully, give me full detail, show off your knowledge and comprehension. And then you're going to want to read through a minimum of 5 of your classmates' posts and reply to 1 of them. In total, each discussion is worth 15 points, 13 for your responses to my questions and 2 for your responses to a peer. And these are my questions right here. This is all about neurons, how neurons communicate, and then you're reading a little article and talking about the 10% myth and some things related to that. Now, I will give you a little heads up on this discussion. What I often see is that people don't give me enough for number 2. So make sure when you're talking about how neurons communicate with each other, that you talk about electrochemical communication, that you talk about that process and the steps involved. Again, with these, better to give me too much than not enough. And as we start going through these and I start grading them after the 2 weeks are up, hopefully you get a better idea of what I'm looking for. Or you can go to this little rubric and sample page and see kind of what I'm looking for and some tips for the discussion. You'll do the same thing for discussion number 4. So the next one that's on here, discussion 4, same thing. You'll see the same format and consistency every time. Watch my little video, answer all of the questions that are right here. This one's about smell and memory. You're going to be doing a little experiment on smell memory, smelling some items and thinking about any associations you might have, reading some little articles about smell and memory and how you can use this in your life. Make sure that you really focus on number 2, as I said right here, that you are detailing what smell memories are and why they occur. And again, I highlight all of that in the little videos, so I think those are going to be helpful for you. And then don't forget to read through your classmates' responses and reply to 1 of them to get those 2 points. So for this week and most weeks, right, you'll have 2 chapters to read, 2 discussions, and then since we are in week 2 of weeks 1 and 2, you also have an exam. So this week we do have exam number 1, and a few of you have already taken it. But what I want to do is spend a few moments talking about the exam, the format, how to prepare, and some tips and things like that. Before I jump into that, are there any questions about the materials that are due this week or anything from last week? Any questions in general before I talk more about exam number 1? I'll give you just a moment here just to make sure. Okay. I'm following on my phone. If any of you have questions, put them in the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. And if not, again, if you think of something as we're going along, of course, feel free to put that in there and I will answer it for you. I don't see anything so far, but I'll wait just like one more minute and then I will jump into that. Okay. Sometimes it gets, it boots me out here, but I'm not seeing anything. Let me double check one more screen. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the exam, and if you do think of any questions, of course, put them in the chat and I will answer them for you. Here we go. So when you go to take exam number 1, you are taking it on the ebook website. So this is where you are going to be taking the test. So really important, if you haven't already, make sure that you have your copy of the ebook, that you've purchased it, you've registered it. All of you should have done this at this point because you needed to in order to take the mandatory orientation quiz that was due last week. But when you go to the ebook site, if you were to click on exam 1, it will remind you that the test is on the ebook site, and so you can click here to go there. And on the ebook site, what you'll notice is all the way up here at the top, you'll see there's a little tab that says exams. Let me move this here so you can see it a little bit better. But there's a tab at the top that says exams, so you'll want to click on that. And this is where you took the mandatory orientation quiz. So you'll just scroll down a little bit more to where it says exams. And there's some instructions. So let's go through these instructions really quickly together. So for the instructions, this is the same for all 4 tests that you will take. You will have 75 minutes to take the exam. You only get 1 attempt, so make sure that you're ready and you're organized before you begin. I would add to that, make sure that you have a nice quiet place to take the test, that you have good internet connection, that you have 75 minutes to take it. Just make sure you're setting yourself up for success and have all those things in place. That's going to really help you to maximize your chances of doing well. You can use your notes, you can use your book, you can use anything at your disposal during the exam. But I promise you that if you're trying to look up every answer, you are going to be very tight, if not run out of time. And this is a little bit purposeful. I want you to study and prepare like you would for a normal test. So please make sure that you are doing that. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means and what to study in a moment. But you're going to want to make sure that you are prepared. If you're organized and prepared and ready to go, you should do great on these. These exams are very straightforward. I will never trick you on a test. If you've been reading and studying and you've prepared, you're going to do fine. So take a deep breath. You're going to be okay. Really important to save your answers. And I showed you this last week on the mandatory orientation quiz, but you need to make sure that all of your answers are saved, that they turn that gold orange color. If you don't save them, they won't count toward your submission. So really important to be doing that. Also make sure that you're watching the clock. Right? You want to leave yourself enough time. If you don't know the answer to a question, skip it, and then you can come back to it later. And when you're done, you can click I am finished and submit your attempt. You will get a score right away. It will tell you how you did. And so you can always look at that to try and understand. If you ever have any questions, you can let me know. But if I go up here just to show you again really quickly, if I click begin your attempt on that practice quiz, this is what that clock will look like up at the top. It will say 75 minutes for this exam. So just be mindful of the time. There'll be a list of the questions. Again, you can skip through them if you don't know the answer, if you want to move around. When you answer it, let's say I answer this one as false. Again, when you hit save, it's going to turn it that orange color. So you want to make sure that all of the questions are orange and saved before you hit I am finished and submit for a grade. One required text, true, save, right? So again, make sure everything is all saved in gold. When you're done, you'll hit I am finished, submit for a grade, and then it's going to give you a score. And just like with the last one, your scores on these don't automatically come over into Canvas. So if you don't see it in Canvas, don't worry. You just want to make sure that you have a grade here in the gradebook. So up here, there is a little gradebook on this site that's temporary. And then once the deadline is passed, I will bring all those scores over just like I did with the mandatory orientation quiz last week. So those are kind of some of the key points on here. A few other things, if we go back to Canvas under week number 2, you'll notice that right underneath the exam, I have right here, study guide for exam number 1. The study guide is your best friend for the test. You want to make sure that you're using it, that you're utilizing it, that you know everything on there. So let's click on this where it says study guide for exam number 1. This is going to open a page with all of the terms that you need to know for this test. If it is on this page, it will be on the exam. If it's not on this page, you can let it go. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to study it. So make sure you know all of these terms from chapter 1, all of these terms from chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. There's also 2 diagrams that you'll want to know. Be able to label these or match them to terms on those questions. So my recommendation to you, this is our first exam. I think it's always better to overstudy, over-prepare. You can always tone it back next time, but you don't want to have that moment halfway through the exam where you're like, I wish I had studied more, and you feel underprepared and you get anxious. So over-prepare for exam number 1, and you can always adjust from there. So when I say prepare, what I would do if it were me, is I would write out or type out every term that's on the study guide, and I would have it in front of me when I go to take the exam. So what that will do for you is, let's say I ask you a question, which I will, about the roots of psychology. You don't have to try and flip through the lecture and the lecture video and the textbook to try and find that information. You'll have it written out in front of you on that study guide or typed out in front of you on a study guide. If you're trying to find that information in the book or the lecture or the notes, it's going to take up valuable time, and that's something that you don't want to do to yourself. So if I could make a recommendation, I would type all of that up or write all of that up, have it organized in front of you, review it, study it like you would for a normal in-person test. And what that's going to do is it's going to reduce your stress. It's going to make sure that you have everything written out. Hopefully you know it, and if you don't, you can look right at your notes and it's there. So for the first exam especially, I would recommend doing that. If you over-prepared and you don't think you need to do that much, again, you can dial it back next time, but you don't want to have that moment where you wish you had done just a little bit more. So I would prepare. I know I'm a straight A student. I'm the kind of student who over-prepares and like wants to get 105% on everything, but better to over-prepare for the first exam. Like I said, a few other things. I will never trick you. Everything should be very straightforward. So if it sounds confusing, reread the question. If you've been reading and studying, you should do great. I would really, really recommend to you, please do not wait till Sunday night at like 10 p.m. to take the exam. You can take it anytime last week or this week. Set yourself up for success. Make sure you have good internet. You know, our weather is pretty good right now. I prefer the rain, but at least it's not like bad internet connection. But you don't want to wait, have the internet crash or your computer crash or an emergency come up. Really important to try and set yourself up for success and take it early if you can. If you do have an emergency happen or if it crashes during the middle of your exam, make sure that you reach out to me before the deadline. If you email me before the deadline, I will be willing to work with you. I'll do whatever I can. If you miss the exam and email me at like 12:02 a.m. on Monday next week, it will be too late to take it. So really important that if something comes up, communicate with me and do so before the deadline. Okay, and I think those are all the things that I really want to say about the exam. Just set yourself up for success, study and prepare. The study guide is your friend. It's right here under the exam link. You're taking the exam here on Canvas, or I'm sorry, on the ebook site. And make sure that you are being really mindful of your instructions, right? That 75 minutes, 1 attempt, saving your answers, all that kind of stuff. And of course, if you run into any problems or issues, you have questions about your grade, feel free to reach out to me. What will happen is when this week ends Sunday night, typically on Mondays, I will grade everything. I will grade all of your discussions. I'll bring the exam scores over. I'll send out an email with some general feedback. And then on the live stream next week, I'll talk about some averages and things that I saw and areas for improvement. And hopefully between all of that, you will always kind of have a good idea of what you did right or not so well and kind of how you felt in comparison to everybody else. So big things for right now. If you haven't already done week number 1, make sure you get going on that. And then for week 2, make sure you do that as well. So you have 4 discussions, an exam, 4 chapters to complete. I do have a couple of reminders for you, but are there any questions at all for the moment in terms of the exam, in terms of what's due, anything that you're confused about? I'm going to give you a couple of reminders, but I just want to give you the opportunity to ask if you're feeling confused about anything as well. I'm going to put one reminder here in the chat. Our next Twitch live stream, so our week number 3 live stream, will be on Wednesday next week, which is the 25th at 11:30, just like this week. Unless something comes up, we will plan on Wednesdays at 11:30 throughout the semester. I'm glad you don't have any questions. That's good. Hopefully you're all feeling really good and everything is clear, but I just always want to check in just to make sure. The other reminder I have for you, a lot of you have figured this out, but if you could please continue to take a moment to try and figure out the Twitch subscription stuff. Many of you have done this, and you can see next to your name that you have the little football cake. If you only have the crown, you still have one step to do, which is to go onto my website on Twitch and click that button at the bottom. I can show you that in a moment. But please take a moment every stream to just make sure that you are subscribed, especially if you're watching this later. Remember that if you're watching this later, the only way to still get the extra credit is to be subscribed, and don't pay for it. I have all those steps on Canvas for how to do this for free, but that does allow me to track your attendance. I truly, again, appreciate all of you who have taken the steps to do this. It saves me a lot of time, and I really do appreciate you doing that. So if you haven't figured that out yet, please take a few moments today or sometime this week to do that. The other thing I have for you is the extra credit question for this week. So let me put that here in the chat as well. And this is something that's going to help you hopefully with the discussion for this week. It's kind of piggybacking off of each other. So for the week number two Twitch extra credit, your extra credit question is, what is meant by electrochemical communication? Describe both pieces of how neurons communicate with each other. So what is the electrical piece? What is the chemical piece? I'm really looking for you to understand this and put this in your discussion number 3 as well. So I'm trying to help kind of reinforce that concept. So week number 2, what is meant by electrochemical communication? Describe both pieces of how neurons communicate with each other. And when you're ready to answer that, you can go over to Canvas. And since we're in week number 2, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 2 right here. And when you click on that, it's going to bring up this page. And at the top, you can click Start Assignment. Quick reminder, if you have not put your name in the chat, make sure you do that, your first and last name. Unless you're subscribed, then you don't need to worry about it because I can download your participation. And again, thank you for those of you who took the time to figure that out. But click Start Assignment at the top. And this brings up this little text box where you can type your response. Okay, and then once you've answered the question fully, hit submit, and it's going to give you that little confetti burst, which is so rewarding. Sometimes there's other stuff. Oh, look, like little moons in there as well. But you can do this all the way up till Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Remember that all materials from weeks number 1 and 2 are due by this Sunday, the 22nd at 11:59 p.m. Please, please be mindful of that deadline. Remember, I don't accept materials after the deadline has passed. You have 2 weeks, so there really is no reason you shouldn't be able to get it done in there. If something comes up last minute, make sure you reach out to me before the deadline, and I might be willing to give you an extension. But after the deadline, it's going to be too late. So just again, try to be mindful of that as we go through. And I think that's everything that I wanted to remind you of. I will be posting a recording of this a little later today. It takes a little bit of time to download and upload, but it will be on here a little bit later. And you can always click here as well to check the weeks 1 and 2 wrap-up checklist. If you want to make sure that you have everything done for weeks 1 and 2, here's everything that you need to do. Canvas has that little to-do list on the home page, but it's not very helpful. You have to click everything off yourself. There's this little to-do list over here on the right. And so if you've watched the live stream, you could click that off, right? If you've done the introductions discussion, remove it. Discussion 1, remove it, right? So you have to remove them yourself, but that is another way to kind of help keep you on track. I think those are all the big things that I wanted to say. I've given you next week, I gave you the extra credit. We talked about what's due this week in the exam. Next week, I will give you a little bit of feedback on what I saw from weeks 1 and 2, which may or may not be helpful for you. But if you ever have any questions, you can ask me here. I'm going to leave the next 5 to 10 minutes or so for questions. Or of course, you can always email me and I'll get back to you pretty quickly. But I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you're kind of settling into the class, getting comfortable, feeling good about everything. And that is kind of the end of everything I wanted to share. What I will do from here is hang out for the next like 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. If you're feeling good, you're welcome to go try and figure out the subscription if you haven't already. Get going on weeks 1 and 2. And again, try and set yourself up for success. Don't wait until Sunday night to complete all of the materials. So thank you so much for those of you who joined me live. If you're watching this later as a recording, thank you for watching it. I hope these are helpful. I'm happy to keep doing them if they are helpful for all of you. I'm going to minimize my video just so I'm not staring at myself. Oh, I wanted to show you one last thing, and then I will do all those things. If you only have the little crown next to your name, and I showed you this last week, but if I scroll up here like this one right here, see how there's only the little crown next to this name? You have one last step to do. So if you go to my Twitch page, and I'm not able to show you on my page, but I'll show you on the page of like a football one that I follow. I don't want to talk about football, by the way. I'm very bitter that Brady lost on Monday night. It was very sad. But if you're on my Twitch page, and we'll just pretend that this is me for a minute here, remember that there's this little purple bar underneath my banner. If you click on that down arrow, all the way down at the bottom, see how it says use Prime Sub? If you click on that and then click subscribe with Prime, that will do that last step for you in order to get that little football cake next to your name. And I'll show you this again one more time when we get to like the 1 month mark and a lot of you fall off. The subscription's only good for free for 30 days. So you want to make sure that you're renewing and checking this. And I'll remind you when we get a little bit closer. Okay? I know, I like the 49ers though too. That would have been a good game. I think that the 49ers I have a feeling they're going to go a long way. They've been playing really, really well. And I'm a big Patrick Mahomes fan as well. Like I have my little, I have Brady of course, but I also have my little Mahomes. I'm a big football fan. I like a lot of different players. So I still have some people to root for even if my main guy isn't going to advance. I cried my tears, so I will let it go at this point. So anyway, I'm going to minimize my video. Thank you again so much for joining me. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Get going on the materials for this week, and I will look forward to seeing all of you next week for our week number 3 Twitch live stream. Thank you so much again, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and I will hope to see a bunch of you again next week. Thank you. You have a good rest of your day as well. Take care. Thank you so much. The king, I like it. Thank you. And I am still here. If any of you have questions, please feel free. I am still here and hanging out if you have any questions for me. And again, I'm still here. If you think of anything, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes and then I'll close this up so I can start the upload and download process. But if you think of anything, I'm still hanging out. You're welcome to put it in the chat. All right, everyone, it looks like I am pretty much the only one in here, so I'm going to go ahead and close this up. Have a wonderful rest of the day, a wonderful week, and I will hope to see you next Wednesday for our week number 3 live stream.